Exhausted and delirious from years of sleep deprivation and a soul-crushing job, Yuji's mind finally snapped. Reality warped around him as he ran, a desperate escape into the throes of madness. The world blurred as he lunged, a final embrace with a speeding truck, his last act. He awoke, not to the pearly gates or fiery depths, but to a strange new world. Beside him, a glistening slime. With a wiggly plop, it led him deeper into the woods. Hours bled into one another, the trees an endless tunnel until a cabin, ancient, moss-covered, and overflowing with magic. Hundreds of grimoires lined the shelves, whispering promises of power. One in particular pulsed with a dark energy, the grimoire of divine destruction. But before he could touch it, the ground shifted. Hundreds of slimes, attracted by his presence, squished around his feet. A surge of power, a connection forged, the divine system activated, binding them all to his will. In a frenzy, the slimes launched themselves at the grimoires, tiny bodies wriggling through pages. In mere seconds, Yuji saw through their eyes, absorbing a torrent of knowledge. Thousands of skills flooded his mind, earning him the coveted title of sage. For the first time, they spoke. "Yuji!" they gurgled. A chorus of affection. A name. A simple thing, yet it resonated deep within him. A week later, he stood before the academy gates, eager to learn the ways of this new world. The magic test began, a sphere humming as it assessed his mana. But Yuji, ever the prankster, shattered the thing with a flick of his wrist. "Testing magic, huh?" He smirked at the bewildered instructor. "Forgot the whole incantation thing, my bad blonde cockroach." A sly grin, a whispered word, "Fireball." And the rock before him vanished in a plume of smoke. On his trek to the Adventurers Guild, a curvy dryad with bark for a dress flagged him down, practically begging for his help. Apparently, she needed a buttload of dragon mushrooms scattered throughout the forest. Now, Yuji wasn't a complete greenhorn. He knew the only reason someone needed that much shroom was for some shady concoction. But before he could protest, his trusty slime brigade went rogue, snatching up every glowing fungi in sight. So with enough ingredients to fuel a potion empire, or a legitimate healing business, the dryad conjured a flower bed of, well, dryad flowers. Apparently, as thanks, she'd be his devoted servant for life. Fantastic. Back on the path home, Yuji sent a slime scout ahead. Suddenly, the forest erupted in a fiery boom. Yuji barely dodged a goblin ambush, the little green menace clearly out for his blood. No sweat. His trusty slime battalion swarmed the goblin, blasting it back to the goblin afterlife. As Yuji swaggered away, oblivious as ever, a demonic stone nestled deeper in the woods, pulsed with a sinister glow, hinting at a future goblin palooza. Returning to the guild, the receptionist raised a skeptical eyebrow. Was this the part where he chickened out? Meanwhile, the resident band of burly hunters scowled with utter disgust. A weakling Tamer among them? Especially this one, who looked suspiciously like a walking oil slick. But before they could unleash a chorus of taunts, Yuji, with a flourish, had his slime release the mountain of dryad flowers. The guildmaster gaped, speechless at how Yuji procured enough blooms to stock a floral festival for years. Just then, a frantic scout burst in, screaming about a monstrous horde swarming the forest. As if on cue, the slime Yuji launched earlier reappeared, its gooey form pulsating with a single terrifying message. Goblins, thousands, coming for guild, repeating, Yuji's name. All right, let's get this goblin smash going. So, the big cheese ale tells all the hunters to skedaddle out of town. But hold your horses. Those brave soldiers, they ain't having none of that. They'd rather kick the bucket protecting their loved ones than hightail it out of here. Just then, our slime wrangler, Yuji, pipes up with a plan so crazy it just might work. He pulls out this giant dragon bone from, well, let's just say a very unusual place, and claims he can use it to unleash some serious dragon fire and roast those goblin runts to a crisp. Now, the soldiers? They ain't exactly buying what this gooey-gloved geek is selling. But then, Harry McCrust, this one perceptive dude, notices something funky about Yuji's slimes and convinces Ail to give him a shot. So while everyone scrambles to fortify the guild like a goblin-proof sandcastle, Yuji hightails it to the roof, The hunters chucked these fancy sky bombs for the archers to rain down arrows, and for a hot minute, it's raining goblin shish kebabs. But those pesky green gits just keep coming. That's when Yuji shoves that giant bone back down his slime's gullet. Turns out he's been full of slime all along, literally and figuratively. But hey, gotta give credit where credit's due. With a flick of a mental switch, bam! Sage system activated. Yuji's about to analyze his way to victory and turn those goblins into green goo. Everything seemed peachy. Yuji was just thanking his slimes for their valiant efforts, even the little goofball who kept tripping over his own goo. But then, Drad spotted a shady figure lurking in the trees, clutching a glowing rock that sent shivers down his spine. Yuji's farewell to his slime suddenly felt ominous. It dawned on the poor blobs a second too late. They were about to be sacrificial goo paste. Luckily, the dimensional gate they guarded still flickered, and with a panicked wiggle, they launched themselves through the portal just in time. Back at the guild, the receptionist eyed Yuji with a growing suspicion. Something wasn't right. As if on cue, the slimes reappeared, a gooey, jiggly mass hovering menacingly above the shady figure. Yuji, ever the quick thinker, pumped his mana into a dual attack. One hand channeled magic to restrain the mage, the other slammed a barrier into existence, severing the connection between the glowing rock and its dark magic. But the mage wasn't going down without a fight. With a grimace and a sickening crunch, he bit down on his own tongue, unleashing a surge of tainted energy that threatened to drain Yuji dry. Time for Plan B. Yuji barked orders to his slimes, who eagerly joined the fray. Together they launched a volley of flaming meteors, incinerating the goblin horde that swarmed the town. The victory, however, was bittersweet. The town itself was on the brink of being overrun by the relentless waves. Yuji knew his most powerful spell. The hellfires of demise could turn the tide, but it would also obliterate the very people he was trying to save. Gritting his teeth, he opted for a different tactic, weaving a powerful, magical barrier to shield the soldiers from the inevitable blast. In the heart of the chaos, Lily's eyes were glued to Yuji, his every word an anthem in her ears. "Stop hiding, Lily! Evacuate the front lines!" he boomed. With a flick of his wrist, a tide of slime surged forth, encasing the town in a pulsating, gelatinous shield. Drad, a whirlwind of dark energy, vanished through a swirling portal Lily conjured. But Victory's song faltered. A hulking brute of a goblin, the king himself, cleaved through the slime wall. Isle's blade sang a desperate tune, deflected harmlessly by the beast's obsidian hide. Harry Stain, ever the reckless vanguard, charged, only to be swatted aside like a fly. Death loomed, a suffocating presence. Just then, a thunderous roar echoed through the battlefield. A colossal wolf, its fur the color of twilight, materialized from thin air, fangs dripping with ichor. In a single brutal motion, it ripped the Goblin King in two, dragging the remaining hunters back to the trembling town. A gasp escaped Lily's lips as a barrier, shimmering with arcane power, flared to life around the entire settlement. This wasn't ordinary magic. This was a power bordering on divinity. Who amongst them possessed such a godlike ability? Disbelief morphed into concern as they watched Sway on his feet. The barrier pulsed erratically, a testament to the immense strain it placed upon him. How could he cast a spell of such magnitude? It should have ripped him apart. But a morbid fascination flickered in Lily's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, it could rip her apart too. Their respite was short-lived. A handful of goblins, shielded by the king's sacrifice, emerged from the carnage.